right, hello and welcome to the postgrad year. This is the Commonplace book, Commonplace binder. I'm going to set this down. We are, of course, looking at the Commonplace Diploma, and what is included in a Commonplace Diploma? Well, for starters, we have to say it's an attachment. So what it does is it locks onto a school rather than creating a brand new school of its own. One student. So we have the school, and then we have this attachment. Who is part of the attachment? One student. At least at first. And we're going to scale it up over time. So, you know, it's not going to be very big at the beginning, which means it's going to be very cheap. And because it's going to be very cheap, it should be very popular. And because it is very popular, politicians should actually be able to put it forward without suffering severe negative ramifications. Fifth year of high school. That's right. So we already have students who are in high school, and some students who are in high school for a fifth year. And so the students who are in high school for a fifth year are normally not the best students, and they normally have some pretty severe negative life experiences going on at the time. And so what I'm saying is maybe instead of just having like one random student who just happened to show up for fun for a fifth year of high school, we allow students to get extra credits towards something else at the high school while they stay at the high school as high-performing students. Because it seems kind of dumb to trap everybody in a place and then only surround them by the people who are bad at the thing, who hate the thing, right? Because all that does is it just makes everybody hate the thing, because they're surrounded by people who hate it. Like, moving on. All right, this one is a little complicated, partially because apparently I can't draw zeros properly. So, 10,000 USD plus $15,000. What's that? Okay, so in the previous video, I talked about how we are creating this fifth year of high school, and we are starting with one student, but we're layering it over time. And so as we attach the things to the school, what we're doing is we're creating a layer that has $10,000 of additional funding for the student, and so that's what this is. And then it also has a plus 15K. And so the assumption for the 15K is even if you're in a district that gives a lot of money to the school for each student, realistically, you're not going to have more than $15,000 allocated per student right now. There are some places where, you know, they do allocate more than that amount of money. But what I'm trying to say with this is for this new system with this one student, realistically, this is not going to cost more than $25,000 in the first year. And so as a politician, you can say, look, I am supporting a policy that is assisting a high-performing student and only cost $25,000 at most, even if we screw it up. Seems pretty easy. But I also need to keep this here because with the layers, you know, the higher layers or the higher levels do have additional funding. And this is not inflation adjusted. So this number down here is inflation adjusted because the amount of money that a student gets or the school gets for each student will change over time. But this amount is flat. And so for the first level, it's $10,000. And it sounds like a lot now, but, you know, play that forward 100 or even 1,000 years, and that $10,000 is not going to be worth much at all. AP courses. So if we have these additional students in their fifth year of high school, we can probably have more AP courses, right? Because if you have a high-performing high school student who is in high school for another year, they're going to be pretty bored, and they're going to have done everything. And so what you need to do is you need to have all these specialty courses at the end. And the great thing about having these specialty courses is the other students can actually take advantage of them. So a politician wouldn't just be supporting one student, they would be supporting the entire school, because the entire school would be they would have greater opportunity to actually take the AP courses because every single course would exist at the school if there were enough and not just, you know, one student. 3 Commonplace Grades. So this is a little complicated, and I've talked about this before, but basically this is my Commonplace book, Commonplace binder. I have talked about adding this to schools as a thing that students can always carry. So they will always have information on them. The information is, let's say, 1 page in the first year, and then that student does okay, so they pass on that information to one student who goes to the school the next year. Great. that student also gets one additional page, because every single year we add one page to this binder system. At the beginning, I know it's just going to be like stapled together or in a folder rather than, a giant binder, because if it's under 50 pages, you don't need some giant complicated metal contraption. You just need to like trap it. But the reason for those 3 commonplace grades is some of the students will do poorly and we don't want to pass on their notes. And so, for example, while I make these videos, some of the things don't work out and I'm just not making that type of video on the channel anymore. There are other videos which do very well. And so I would like to double that material, right? And so the same concept is going on here. You have people who don't do well, people who do very well, and then people in the middle. And so that's like an additional form of grades, which we can talk about at another time. Handwritten and printed. So all the stuff in here is handwritten. If I printed it, it would definitely save me time. But I'm trying to show people the process of what this sort of thing looks like, because this is my demonstration binder. And if you watch my previous playlist of 100 videos on the Commonplace binder, you would probably know that. And I assume the people watching this have watched at least one of those videos before, so thank you for watching. But basically what I'm trying to say is you can handwrite in the binder, and then you can reprint the stuff, right? So any edits you want to make, you can make, just like a teacher would make them, except it's for your own work. And so if we have students doing this, they're going to get comfortable handwriting things, which is great, because we don't need to have a specific handwriting class, because they're basically just helping themselves out, right? And we don't really need to worry about the printed aspect, because if they don't want to print, they don't have to print, right? Like we don't have to buy extra printers, we don't have to do anything there. Now, there may be something set up so that everybody has access to a printer at all times, because they don't always have a pencil, and there's something about, fairness. But we are kind of getting rid of all those programs right now, so you never know. That might fluctuate over time. Fixing errors. So one of the great things about having the printed thing and then, handwriting, is people are going to notice the problems and are going to go, crap. I'm not doing this on the computer or a phone or whatever, and I can't just like move all the stuff however I want it to move. And so they're going to have to figure out how to fix the errors with their handwriting. And so again, the handwriting is going to get much better, and the way that they draw little lines is going to get better. Like, this is a mess right here. Maybe they're going to make it actually make sense. And it should give people a little bit of a feeling of agency or control, which is great. Because it would be nice if, people under the age of 25 actually felt like they had at least a little bit of control over something in their lives. Creating indicators. So maybe the thing that you want to do is you have this special, binder thing that you can use during tests and quizzes and homework and all that other stuff. But you actually just want to create a habit tracker, right? You're going to create these little indicators. You're going to be like, well, whenever the teacher does this, this other thing happens. And so you might have some people trying to predict what the teacher's going to do, what they're going to put on the next test. And that's great, because you might have one student one year, but if they do well and they pass on their notes, and then those people do well and they pass on their notes, it goes from 1 student to 2 students to 4 students, assuming that all of the students are doing well. And so everyone is going to use the existing indicators in the old binders to figure out how the class works. Reducing worry. So if you have the notes of someone who passed the class, and you have the notes of another person who passed the class, and you have the combined total of 100 different people who passed the class, who all refine the notes over time and made the indicators a lot clearer to you, then why would you be worried, right? Adapt to stakeholders. So over time, the system will need to adapt. And so you might have this attachment where it's just a 5th year of high school, and that's great. But eventually you're going to run out of people who could potentially have a 5th year of high school, right? Everyone will have finished their 5th year. And so what do you do at that point? Well, you make it so that the new levels take up multiple grades, or you have it so that the oldest level takes up multiple grades. So instead of just being the 5th year of high school, it's the 5th year and the 4th year, or the 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, and you keep going down the list. And so over time, what the system does is it eats up the entire existing school system, while also providing a little bit of extra money and stability. Measurable metrics. And one of the reasons for this is because, just like with reducing worry, we're creating a book that tells everyone how to measure everything, which metrics they're supposed to track, and how this stuff actually plays out. So that's great. And if the book doesn't work, well, the student's probably not going to pass the class, or at least they're not going to do well enough to pass on their book to multiple people. And so they might do well enough to pass on their book to one person, and we might end up with some really funky looking trees where instead of everything, breaking apart like a normal tree where we get the branches and it's all really cool, you might just have like a line where it's just like one student did very okay in the class and the person they gave their notes to did very okay. And that happens for like 60 years in a row. That would look very funny, especially if, every other student was part of a tree that just kept like expanding and narrowing. Just like this one guy in the corner. But that sort of stuff's going to be really fun to look at for people. Window to the brain. So the type of book that goes to each individual student is not necessarily going to be made for them. And so we might need some sort of personality test or some other way of figuring out which book goes to which student. Now you might just say, well, it's one student, so like maybe they pick who the notes go to. But then you'd have some people who like don't know anybody, and then that doesn't work out, and so it's more about knowing the older students. But depending on the structure you're trying to set up, it might be better to have some of the students know some of the other students. It's not really important for the focus of this video. What I should really be talking about is this is sort of a window to the brain of the students. And when the books are passed on, the teachers will be able to see which books did well and what they were about. And so if 100% of the students are frantically writing down everything about biology class, then maybe the biology teacher needs to chill out, right? Like maybe the grading is getting a little ridiculous. Or if everyone is taking an introductory class and there's nothing on the introductory class, maybe that class could be a little bit harder, right? And so this is a way to, sort of see into the people's brains, but also a way to actually figure out which teachers are making their classes really hard, right? Like if you have two science classes and one of the science classes has students who fill their entire book with science stuff, and then the other class doesn't add anything. In fact, they remove some of the old notes from the old students, and we keep track of the books over the entire lifespan. It's going to be pretty obvious how each new teacher integrates to the school. And so that's cool because it gives the students stuff to work with and it gives the teachers stuff to work with. And people don't need to monitor the teachers all day, every day, because it's really annoying for the teachers and for the students when some, random adult walks into the classroom and just sits there and takes notes. It's annoying. Secure path. So, sorry, I've got to secure the lighting. There we go. Secure path for the Commonplace Diploma. So because this is the 5th year of high school, it does need to mean something, right? We can't just have extra nonsense lumped at the end. So in the previous video, I talked about how the 5th year of high school might just be in extra year of high school, which preps for college, or something for the military, or something for vocational education, or for magnet schools. But all we're doing is we're just creating a slightly more secure path. We're not saying you have to figure out exactly what college you want to go to when you're, 15 or 16 or 17. But you just have to figure out by the time that you're, 17 that you want to go to college, right? And so that should be a lot easier because if this extra year of high school is all about having the guidance counselors and visiting the colleges and learning about admissions and, all the other details, it should be a much more secure path. You might not get exactly what you want, and you probably won't get it as fast as you would have gotten it normally, but it's a lot more reliable. Established position. So I feel like everything here has just been screaming established position. We create this book, it lasts forever, and we have these specific levels or layers, and they last forever until something better is made. And the other students are going to help you along the way. So there's just there's no need to stress about this at all. Post-grad varsity. Okay, so when it comes to sports, you might have realized, especially if you were an athlete in school, that having all these extra students doing a 5th year of high school is kind of bad, because the sports teams are going to be college kids. And so if you're a little freshman joining the football team over here, and then you've got the college player, they're just gonna like destroy you, right? And so for certain sports, this is going to be more of a problem than in others. Like if you're doing cross country, like, yeah, they're going to run faster, but they're probably not going to like push you off the course. That would be rude. It's possible, but you know, it's not super plausible. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to have a post-grad varsity, right? So you have like, you know, the 5th year of high school, and then the people in the 5th year of high school have their own sports team, basically. And so if a student's doing really well, they can move up from varsity to what is essentially a club. And so this way you will also spawn a bunch of clubs all around whichever state or nation tries this out. 2.5K direct payment. So for this next set of things until the end of the video, what we're going to talk about is how the additional $10,000 would be allocated. So this could be $10,000, could be $20,000, $30,000, you know, even $100,000. But realistically, I think we should start at $100,000 and then just increase it over time. Whenever we add a new level, it should just be 10,000 more. Like, that's not super complicated. And of course, the second number is, you know, whatever amount it costs to send someone to school. And that's just, you know, whatever it would cost for like a high school senior. This number is not representative of everything, but I'm just trying to say this one will change and this one will not. But when we make more levels, that one goes up. So, assuming we're only having 10,000, and you know the percentage is going to be the same because it's a quarter, right? If we have 4 things, that is 1/4 of the original number. A quarter of it, as in $2,500, is a direct payment to the student. And so this is saying, look, you're in your 5th year of high school, you could have been working, you could have been making money from this other place or situation or whatever. And so we're giving you enough money to like take the bus to school or get an Uber for like, you know, the one day that you're late or just you can't get there for whatever reason. Might also help with getting a new computer or just food, because it might be the person's basically a broke college student, but you know, they're in an extra year of high school. After that, we have the student wealth fund. So this is the assumption that the student is not going to spend their money properly because, you know, they're still a teenager, or maybe in their very early 20s, depending on how this is set up. And so, like, they're not going to make the best choices and something's going to go wrong. And so for this, we have the next quarter going to the student wealth fund. Basically what this means is there is money that will be given back to the student over time, right? So instead of all at once, it will just be over the course of their life. So they could own shares in what is essentially a stock. This could be distributed based on a certain number of years, you know, maybe like 1, 10, 100, 1,000, like however you want to set this up. The point is the money just gets distributed over time from an existing fund rather than all at once. And so up next we have the student council, because, you know, you have the student wealth fund, but who's in charge of it? Well, the student council, of course. But the student council also gets additional money. And so this additional money is really interesting because it can be used for whatever. It can put a whole bunch of extra money into the student wealth fund, say like, look, we're just going to give everybody a much higher payout, and that's what we want to do. It could go towards all the things that would normally require fundraising, like we want to have a special field trip, or we want to have a better prom, or we don't want to have to like basically tax every vending machine in the school or whatever nonsense we were doing before to get money. And so this just makes the student council a lot more powerful and actually makes it meaningful, because right now, if you're on a student council in high school, it's like, look at me, I'm in charge, but like, what does it mean? And then finally, we have the advocates. So the advocates are basically people who are like half teacher, half grandparent. And we're going to talk about them later in the playlist, but the point is we're basically just allowing teachers a way to retire with a little bit more you know, grace and dignity and over a longer period of time rather than all at once. Because sometimes people will retire and then they'll come back, and basically what this does is it allows teachers to specialize It alters the tenure track a little bit by giving additional options for everyone without, you know, terminating anything that exists. It's quite interesting, actually, but that's enough for today. So up next we have human value, which I think is the first video in this playlist so far that doesn't specifically mention Commonplace Diploma, but I mean, you'll have to watch it to find out, right? So anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you found this interesting or thought-provoking, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.